So good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. So, for everyone listening, Sarah is the founder of the McLean Meditation Institute and author of a new book, The Power of Attention, which I'm very excited to hear more about soon. So, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on your Friday afternoon.
Thank you. I'm actually heading off to a book signing in about a half an hour, so we've got a little time here.
I wish
I'd
I was.
love to talk about the power of attention.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear more about it. I'm actually excited to buy it and read it because what I read of it, I was like, wow, that sounds super powerful and something that I feel like we don't talk about or think about enough. So we will get into that, but before we do, I'd love for you to tell us just a little bit about your story and what inspired you to start the McLean Meditation Institute and the book that you wrote.
Okay. Well, it's a really long story. You'll have to buy the book, but it starts off with my trip. I was bicycling on my mountain bike around the world, and I found that I was having a real difficult time maintaining my attention in the present moment. I was constantly going into the future, like, what about that hill that's coming up? I was cycling in the Himalayas, and I was constantly, my attention was going everywhere but where I was. And so I was cycling with my boyfriend, and we started to chant. He taught me this, it's a Zen Buddhist chant. It's in Japanese, and it's to Kanzeon, who is Kuan Yin. It's the way they say it is Kanzeon. And I would chant this chant over and over in my mind, and it helped me to get my mind into the present moment, because I don't know about you, but most people in the world are either their body is right here, their brain is right here, their breath is right here, their life is happening here, but the mind is in the future or the past or in somebody else's business.
Yeah.
So, it's like, how can I start paying attention to where I am? I'm in spectacular places around the world. I am right now. I'm sitting here in Sedona, Arizona, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And, you probably know people like this. They can be on vacation, but all they're thinking about is what they're going to do when they get home. Or they're eating lunch and they're talking about what they're going to do for dinner. And, I think what happens is people don't honor, and you mentioned this, people don't honor their own attention very much. And I want to talk about that. But in terms of my story, I got back from that 9-month trip on the road, only stopped short because he got pneumonia and we stopped right there. But I went into a Zen Buddhist monastery and learned to meditate. And I ended up having a regular life. I went to college, I graduated, and then I was having this feeling of what next? What next? I mean, a lot of people have that. And haven't mentioned this, but I had already been divorced. I had already been married and divorced. I had already been in the Army. I'd ridden my bicycle halfway around the world. And I was sitting in this house I had bought after college. I had gone into real estate, and I had a giant car phone. Way back then, car phones were the size, like they were this big. I had a giant car phone. I had a 14-room house, and I had everything I'd ever wanted. And I was like, well, what else is there? And I think when we ask that question, and we can ask it at any point in our lives, but when we ask that question, an answer will meet it. And the answer can come in so many ways. It can come in the form of a newspaper article you read, or some tweet you got, or a song someone sent to you, or a movie someone mentioned, or a book you're reading, or just a chance meeting. And for me, what it was I was reading the new, the Washington Post, and in the book review section, I was reading about a man named Deepak Chopra. You know him now, but he was not known back in 1989. And I thought, oh my God, this guy's onto something. He's talking about how there's more to life than just the physical body and the way that we think. There's health to be found that's beyond the absence of sickness. There's health to be found in terms of being passionate and creative and engaged. And he talked about an ancient science of healing called Ayurveda. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's about 5,000 years old. It's from ancient India, and it talks about how to create health, not just through, getting rid of disease, but through the taste levels. There are 5 different tastes. You can do it through aromatherapy, color therapy, sound therapy, massage therapy, different marma points, which are like acupuncture points or acupressure points, elimination therapy, meditation, yoga, herbs. So I was reading this book review about this book, and I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. It's cool. It was cool in 1989. It's still cool today, but it wasn't as prevalent as it then as it is now. And so it was like I sort of found a chunk of gold. It was like, wow, I'm going to follow this. So I went to work for him. I dropped my life. I'd left my house. I left my job. I left my life, and I went to live in a TM center, Transcendental Meditation Ayurveda Center, where Deepak Chopra was. And it was the emphasis was on meditation. And I loved meditating. I didn't really know much about it. And I got really involved in it and lived and worked there for a couple of years. Went off to California when he moved there and have been sort of on that journey of meditation, awareness, consciousness, health, mind-body healing ever since.
Wow.
Wow. How did I get to Sedona? I haven't even talked about much more, but
that is an incredible version, and that is an incredible story. And I know you probably gave us the 5-minute version, whereas I know that there's like a 5-hour, probably 50-hour version, which I kind of want to hear more. But in the consciousness of time, and you need to get your book signing, I'll let people buy the book so that they can learn more. I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to that. How did that, that moment that you read about Deepak Chopra in the newspaper, and went and started getting involved in the meditation and everything, how did that change your life?
It changed every aspect of my life. It changed the way I saw myself. I always discounted myself and didn't really love myself. I was nice to everybody else, but put myself on the back burner, said nasty things to myself.
Yeah,
I think self-love is the final frontier, to be honest. So it helped me to love myself. It helped me to expand my awareness, to understand the impact of every choice I make. It helped me to stay very calm in the midst of chaos. It helped me to be much more responsive rather than reactive. It really helped me to glimpse I don't want to sound too woo-woo, but I'm here in Sedona, so I can. It helped me to glimpse other possibilities for life and, connecting and paying attention and expanding awareness. So it really changed my life in every single way, the way I listen, the way I speak, the way I write, the way I hear, the way I see the world, maybe even the way the world sees me.
Yeah, wow. And how do you, because I think all of us aspire to that, right? I mean, we, this month, as you know, our theme is presence, and every month we release an e-coaching tool on that theme. And we always start with a quick questionnaire, and so this month, we asked our members, how important is being present, how important is that to you? And everyone that's done the tool so far scored it a 5 out of 5 in terms of importance, right?
Yeah.
So most people, and I know that like our members, very much so really aspire to that, but I think most people do. But there's a difference between wanting something and really maintaining or building the habits to achieve it. So I want to get into that a little bit more in a little bit, but I'd love to ask you in your personal journey. I imagine there were times where, and I imagine maybe there still are times where you lose that sense of presence or mindfulness, and some of those maybe toxic thoughts come back in. How do you challenge them, and how do you overcome that?
Well, first of all, it's always just aiming to get a little better at it. We're never going to be perfect at it. And there are always going to be stressors in our lives and situations we can't control and responses that are sort of knee-jerk reactions from our past. And that just happens. But, I love to always remember that we can begin again in any moment. We can begin again. The minute you find yourself reacting, screaming at your brother or freaking out in traffic, you can start right then, because with being more mindful and more aware and more self-aware, you can feel when you're off center, and it's almost like you can write it again and again. And Elon Musk just launched his SpaceX, I don't know how many, 13th launch, and he talked about going from launch to the space station, and he says, you're never on course. There are all these micro movements that you have to make in order to make your goal. And I think that's the same with being present. You might find yourself completely distracted on your phone in the middle of a conversation with somebody, and you can write it in the middle. And self-awareness is key. Sometimes your body will let you know. Sometimes your friend will let you know. Sometimes your own emotional state will let you know. but it's always something you can change. And if you can do it without beating yourself up, that would be really helpful. Do not beat yourself up if you go off course. It does not, that's a real waste of energy.
Yeah, I love how you said, every moment is an opportunity for renewal. And I think that we often think that, I mean, you see it in its simplest form with New Year's resolutions. So people look at a new year as a form for a fresh start. They look at a new day maybe as a way for a fresh start. But we don't often think about each moment as being an opportunity for a fresh start. So I think that's really powerful to remember, every moment is an opportunity for a fresh start. And you also touched on something else, which is definitely something that really interests me. And I know a lot of people struggle with a lot, their phones or technology. I think that I think that the desire to be present and to kind of, I guess, reach that ideal state of somewhat enlightenment has been a timeless and universal desire. But I think that it's ever more difficult with, Facebook notifications, emails, phones on us 24/7, computers. Do you have any personal strategies for how you manage the technology side of things and maintain your, sense of zen amidst it all?
Well, I think the first thing, yes, I do have personal strategies, which I'll share. But the first thing is, I think we have to start to value the quality of our attention and the value of the attention itself. And I want you to think about, what it feels like to be really listened to, what it feels like to have someone really get you, your best friend, your boyfriend, your lover, whatever. What does it feel like to really be heard and seen and gotten like that? And then what does it feel like when you're really trying to share something important, all of a sudden someone just picks up their phone and they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. What does that feel like? It feels like you're probably dismissed. I've studied attention for a really long time because it's one of the ingredients in meditation. My feeling is attention is love. Your non-judgmental attention is love. It is a beam of love. It is the currency of love. And so once we start to recognize that, we get to decide, what are we going to love now? What are we going to love now? And instead of being reactive to the bells and whistles of the phones and the buzzing and the notifications, we get to decide, is that what I want to pay attention to now? And so, start to recognize that your attention is a currency. You only have so much of it. It's like a currency that's very valuable. It can change the world. It can change your life. It can change the lives of others. And so why waste it? And when you start to look at it like that, then you can come up with some strategies. Okay, when do I want to check my emails? I mean, most of the time, everybody at this point is on their phone. So, as a meditation teacher, I'm very lucky. I know where the off button is. I know where the airport or airplane mode is. And the thing is, I don't use my phone that much because, I get as many emails as anybody else and as many messages as anybody else, but I have to have it off because I'm teaching meditation or I'm on a phone call with you or I'm trying to be present for my family. And so I really go analog. I go analog. And so what does that look like? It looks like I get up in the morning, I don't sleep with my phone, and neither should you. You should sleep with the person you want to sleep with and wake up to an alarm that's analog so that when the alarm goes off, you can gracefully and with ease wake up instead of having life become an emergency. What? Is that?
My husband is going to love you for telling me to do this because he tells me to do that quite frequently. I mean, I'm all for it, but I think that wanting to do it and saying you're going to do it is sometimes different from actually doing it. And obviously, mindfulness, meditation, presence is something that's very present for you. I mean, it's your profession, it's your life, you live and breathe this. But for a lot of people that don't give as much attention to this space, are there some simple strategies that they can start implementing right away to start seeing those results?
Absolutely. Start to recognize what you're paying attention to. Like, what am I paying attention to? Why am I paying attention to this stupid thing? Or why am I listening to this drama? Start to recognize that your attention is a currency and you only have, it's like money. You have only so much of it. But I do recommend, and I'm going to say it again, that you and all your friends and everybody listening, don't sleep with your phone. Do not sleep with your phone. Go analog between the time you're going to bed and the time you're waking up, and make that a beautiful way to meet the day. because like I said, life becomes an emergency when we start going through the to-do list. And I know when you're in your 20s and 30s and even 40s, people are like, you're trying to make it. You're trying to be a great businesswoman. You're trying to be an entrepreneur. You're trying to put all your life force energy into this. And instead, you're not working smarter when you're doing that. You've got to give yourself a little time. I mean, think about, the ancient art of archery. That you pull the bow back or the arrow back and you take aim at something and then you let it go. This is meditation. This is sleep. This is paying attention to something that matters in the present moment, like being in nature. That's what pulling the bow back. But if you're never pulling the bow back and you're just on, well, first of all, you'll burn out your adrenals. But secondly, you never have a chance to reflect because there's always the next thing to do on your to-do list. I mean, you probably noticed that, right?
Yeah.
So there's no chance for congratulations, right? Celebrating something that's wonderful because there's always the next thing to do. So I recommend don't sleep with your phone. Get out in nature without your phone. I know that's scary, but try it. It's really good for you. When I rode my bike around the world and I went to scary places like Pakistan, when I rode my bike around the world, I did not have a phone. I didn't have a GPS. I had a map and I had a water bottle. I had nothing else. And you know what? You can do it too. The world is not as scary as you think, but it can be scary when you're stressed out. Now, of course, I'm going to talk about meditation now.
Yeah,
So
please
not
do.
only do you wake up, with an alarm clock, you get up, as Deepak Chopra says, you get up to sit down. You get up and then you sit down to meditate. Of course, you have to brush your teeth or feed the dog or pee. And then you sit down to meditate before you check your phone, before you check your phone, before you make coffee, before you do anything, even before you run. If you happen to do yoga, you could do that then. But if you've got an aerobic activity, do that after meditation because you want your heart rate at a resting rate. So when you sit down to meditate, you predetermine how long you're going to do it, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you stick to the entire thing. And this helps to give you stamina with your ability to focus because many of us don't have the ability to focus even for a minute. And it's not our fault. We've created neural pathways that are very jagged. But when we introduce meditation, it's a training of the attention. So every meditation requires 3 ingredients. The first one is your willingness to do it. That's important. The second is your gentle, non-judgmental attention. And your third ingredient for meditation, and this is where all the meditations vary in type and format and names and all different kinds of ways. You can either focus on something that you see, either outside you, like a mandala or a candle flame, or in your mind's eye, like a light or a shape. You can focus on some sound-based meditation, one you listen to, like crystal bowls or chanting, or a sound you might make, like chanting or prayer, or one you think, like a mantra. And you can also focus on something you feel, such as your breath or a body sensation, or even an emotion. So every meditation is different, but they all have those 3 main ingredients. And so first thing in the morning, get up, take care of your quick rituals, and then sit down to meditate, and then check your phone, then have your coffee. That's the pulling back, and then you can just go.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really powerful suggestion because I really love the idea of meditating first thing in the morning, but I check my phone first thing in the morning. And once I check my phone, I have way too much to do to meditate. So it becomes a cycle.
And you probably goes like this, right?
So for people that are beginners and are starting out in meditation, I know you mentioned a few different forms of meditation, whether that's sound, breath. Is there, a good place for them to start? Do you recommend maybe listening to a guided meditation, or for really kind of beginners, what would you suggest as kind of an easy way to ease into meditation?
Well, I think you have to come up with the reason why you want to meditate. I mean, you have to have a motivation, just like a diet, do you want to fit into that dress? Do you want to go to the beach? With meditation, it's like, what do I really want here? Do I want more peace? Do I want to be in a better relationship with my body? Do I want to love my life? Do I want to say what I mean? And, you know, my suggestion, and I don't even think I have a book here. Oh, yes, look, I do. This is my suggestion. This is an old copy of my first book, which is called Soul Centered, which is the opposite of being object referred. And it's really all about finding that inner light inside. It's an 8-week program. I have a lot of free meditations online as well on YouTube. I suggest, you know, you can listen to anything you like, anything that's going to let you do it. Start by just sitting down and going analog for 10 minutes. The second best time of day to meditate is happy hour. Whatever you do between your 9 to 5 job, if you have one, and you know, having dinner. You know, if you do a bong hit, if you go running, if you turn on your computer, whatever you do,
Glass of wine at
you
that
just, and
time.
before all that, a glass of wine, and before all that, you meditate.
Yeah, okay.
Before all that, you meditate.
I feel like that sounds like a good time as well, because otherwise you take the day into the evening, like you take your work into your family life. But I think that that creates this great boundary between, okay, now it's time for me and my family and love, and switching off from all of that. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
turn off the phone.
I hope all of the listeners are going to commit. I know I'm going to commit, so I will keep you posted, and that's a great book to get started. So that's wonderful. I know obviously this journey has changed your life in every way possible. I'm curious even how you've seen it change other people's lives, and whether you have kind of a favorite story or some common themes that you see in how it does change other people's lives.
Well, I can tell you a lot of people come into meditation because they've had some sort of tragedy, to be honest. Most people don't take time for themselves until they have to, whether they've lost a loved one or a breakup and are heartbroken or have a diagnosis. I'm going to tell you a story about somebody. This is a real story. This man came to my meditation class. I used to teach here in my home here in Sedona. I have a meditation studio now, but this man came as a favor to a friend to a meditation class. This man was a judge in Phoenix, and he had been diagnosed with really bad heart disease. He was probably in his early 60s. And, you know, I've seen changes with people that are 12 to 80, but this man really sticks out because of his name. He used to be called Judge Meany. He was a judge in the court systems that used to judge the capital cases, the serial murders and things like that. So he was miserable. I mean, every day he was facing all these horrible people doing horrible things to horrible, and other people having to live with it. And he was having heart disease, and they couldn't put him on any more medication than he was on. And so his friend said, come see Sarah. You know, my wife likes to meditate with Sarah. Come see Sarah. So he came to me, and he sat there like, I am not meditating. I'm like, well, you don't have to, but I'm going to teach the class because you're here. And so he learned to meditate with me. He never thought he was going to do it. He lived by himself for a really long time, and he got home, and I didn't hear from him for a while. But then I heard about him. He had feng shuied his house, which that is not part of my program, but he feng shuied his house. He started doing yoga and meditating every day, and now he's a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher. And he lost tons of weight. He was no longer on his heart medication. I mean, it was a beautiful like storybook. But I've, you know, also have talked to people that have really bad anxiety, and they're not able to even, they can barely be alone because they just start freaking out, and they have to be on their phone or they have to be talking to someone. And those people have been able to sit with their eyes closed and have learned some of the practices I teach, whether it's breath awareness, body awareness. We do other kinds of practices that I teach, like self-inquiry and heart-centered breath. But I've had people that feel like they have gotten their confidence back. They feel much more independent, and yet they feel much more safe in their life. I mean, I work with people who are recovering addicts because, of course, the 11th step is sought through prayer and meditation, a conscious contact through a higher power. And I don't teach particular traditions, though I lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery for 2 years. I lived in a Hindu ashram for 6 months. I worked at the Chopra Center for 8 years, and I lived in a TM center for a year and a half. But I don't teach those particular traditions. However, I've taken the best of all of those techniques, and I really teach those because I think people don't need a new religion. They just need to meet their own mind and love themselves.
Can you open some studios in Seattle, please? I'll need to keep.
Yeah, I probably can. I do have some teachers. We have teachers all around the world. I run a meditation teacher academy because I recognize the need for really good teachers. There are a lot of teachers out there. I'm really interested in teachers that can do what I'm doing right now in the short period of time and help you to understand the nature of meditation. And so I have a 200-hour teacher training program, like a yoga program, and there are teachers all over the world. And so you can go to my website and go on find a teacher, learn to meditate and find a teacher, and you'll find one. Probably
Okay.
in Seattle. I think we have one up there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Will most definitely do that. And I just looked at the clock, and it's crazy how quickly time flies because I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours, but I don't want to escape without hearing a little bit about your book. So please tell us the power of attention. Talk to us a little bit about the power of attention.
Okay, so remember I talked earlier about the three ingredients to meditation: attention, your willingness to do it, and then a focus. So as a meditator, of course, I'm focusing on my mantra or my breath. And then eventually I started to ask myself this question: where is my attention arising from? What is it that's looking through my eyes? Or what is it that's paying attention? And what is it that's looking through your eyes? Who are you? And what is it that's paying attention? So that started this sort of inquiry and this quest to understanding attention, understanding consciousness more, understanding the expression of consciousness, and understanding the importance of attention. The book itself really looks at the effect of your attention, how your attention affects others, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through your intention, and how it can affect someone on the other side of the planet. And there are studies to back it up. Also, how your attention focused on your own body can affect you and how it can help with healing or not. And so it's really all about the power of your attention and, like I was talking about before, the source of your attention, which I would say is a field of love, that which is living through you as you, that lives through me as me, and that lives through everyone as them, even if we don't think that it does. Everyone has this ability. They haven't uncovered it because it's all covered with conditions.
Right. I find that really, really fascinating, and especially how our attention can potentially change someone on the other side of the world or within our own bodies. I'd love for you to share a couple of examples for me and for the people listening.
Okay, so think about, well, I'll tell you about my example. Okay, so I was young, I was in my 30s, and I was diagnosed with cancer, which is not that uncommon now, but back then it was. And I got cancer, and at the time, there wasn't that much mind body stuff. I was in the only mind body center there. I was embarrassed. I was working for Deepak Chopra, and I got cancer right here. So I went to him and I said, "Can I have a mantra?" And he's like, "No, you need to get surgery." And so he gave me a mantra, and I got surgery. But before all that, I was under the impression that there should be this fight. Cancer is something that we have to fight. We have to fight. So I would do these visualizations of, the good guys beating up my cancer cells, the bad guys, right? And every night before I went to bed, I would do this visualization, and it would cause me a lot of stress. I could feel my body tightening up. It did not feel peaceful. Then one day I decided I'm going to love my cancer cells because I believe love heals. It heals everything. And so I decided to love my cancer cells. And the instant I made that decision, my whole body was like this, felt like this big warm oil that went over my whole body, like, thank you. It was like this, I don't even know. It felt like perfection. And I know that love helps. Now, it's funny because people get scared when they hear words like cancer or death and things like that. But I've learned to love myself through that experience. And yes, I ended up getting surgery, but I could viscerally feel the difference. I mean, think about the way people talk about themselves. Oh, my fat thighs or my big ass or my, whatever. It's like, no. And their bad knees or their bad arms. It's like, your body is always overhearing your internal dialogue. But on a more scientific note, there's a lot of studies showing that people praying for petri dishes of bacteria, from praying from the East Coast to the West Coast on various petri dishes of bacteria, they pray for one to work or one to thrive and one not to thrive, and they find that attention travels through time and space, so that the petri dish full of bacteria that was prayed for gets much more bacteria in it, whereas the one that isn't gets ignored. Now, it's as simple as walking by a house plant every day, and you've got one behind you, right? So maybe that's not real, but if you walk by a plant every day and don't water it, what happens? It dies. It's obvious, just like a relationship, just like your own health. And if you go by it and you talk to it, they can hear. There's a lot of research out now that plants are totally connected to you, and I'm looking at mine over there, and can hear you and talk to you and respond to you, put it that way. There's a book called The Secret Life of Plants, where a man who probably didn't have enough to do hooked up a lie detector electrodes to his plant to see the response of his plant when he came over to a leaf with a lighter threatening to burn it, or with water offering to water it. And the plant had various reactions based on the thought of what the guy was doing, not even what he was doing. The plant started reacting with the thought of its leaves being burned. So this is very real. Now, there are a lot of studies, too, on AIDS patients that have been prayed for that didn't know. It's all, it's nobody knew. It was the study group. Nobody knew who was being prayed for, and their AIDS or their HIV never turned back into AIDS. And so there are there's a lot of really cool studies around the power of prayer, which is attention, and you don't have to have a particular God in mind, and your intention, how your attention and your intention that accompanies it has an effect. And we've all heard about the movie The Secret. That's all about attention and intention. But the attention has always been left out. No one talked about that. They talked about the intention, but the attention is the vehicle. So you can read a lot about the power of prayer, the power of the Secret Life of Plants, and even Dr. Emoto, who studied bodies of water and attention and intention and its effect on bodies of water, which is in my book. You can read about that.
Right. I'm already so fascinated, and I'm excited to read more about it. Would you say that the book is for someone in particular, or is it for anyone that's interested in improving their life through this?
I think it's for people who are distracted. But then again, people who are distracted can't read a book. But I think it's important, even if you don't read the book, just think about the power of your own attention. I don't even have a copy here, I don't think.
That was, I told you about the quick survey that we do at the beginning of all of our tools. And the first question was, how important do you believe being present is? And the second question was about how distracted they are in their everyday. And 95% scored very, very high on their level of distraction. So when you say it's for the person who's distracted, I think that that's the majority of people right now, because it's tough. And I feel like busyness has become somewhat a badge of honor that people aspire to, and it's not. But I feel like there's a whole changing I feel like it needs to also start at the fundamentals of how we view, like at a society level, because we have this conditioning, and we perceive certain things to look like success and certain things to not look like success. So I think that, it takes a lot of effort to actually challenge what you grew up believing or what society tells you is true.
Right. And so you can ask yourself the question, well, what is success first? But before you even ask that, you can ask yourself the question, okay, I'm so busy. What if I get everything done? Then what will I have? And do I have to wait to get everything done in order to have that? Think about it. What would you have if you got everything today off your to-do list? What would you have?
Time.
Yeah. And then what would you have?
Time, like to go for a run or spend with family or relax, read a book, watch TED Talk.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, you can have that now.
Yeah.
You can have that now. You just have to put yourself, in that mix of the to-do list. Put yourself on it. First of all, put yourself on it. My inner peace, number one, and remember that life's not an emergency. It seems like one, but it's really not one.
Hmm. What is
Really
the
not
best
one.
piece of advice you've ever been given?
Um, Love yourself first, and everything else will fall into place.
And what would be one piece of advice that you'd give to everyone listening?
Pay attention to what you're paying attention to and start to use your attention wisely.
Wow. And I feel like everyone can start. I mean, the great thing about this is you can start right now. Like, you can start right away. You don't need resources, you don't need money. You can change your life right now by starting to pay
Yeah.
attention. So, I'm excited to implement some of these ideas and strategies in my life. I'm very excited to read your book. And I thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you
And
so much for having me. I love paying attention to you.
well, we'd love
Thanks
to
for
have you.
paying attention.
We would love to have you anytime. And to anyone listening, go check out Sarah's book, Power of Attention. I'm super, super excited to share this with all my listeners. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for paying attention to me. Take care.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.